Liverpool back to winning ways. But, Graham, I want to come to you straight away on the body language of Mo Salah. Obviously, he did score, but it didn't do a great deal to earn that goal with Emi Martinez just giving him the ball in an open goal. What do you think is going on with Liverpool? Are you impressed by their performance? Do you think this is a step in the right direction?
So yes, I'm clearly getting the win is a step forward for Liverpool after their 6 domestic defeats in a row. Mo Salah just set himself such a high standard. You know, Liverpool were decent at the weekend. They beat a decent Villa team who are on a good run of form. But yeah, he's clearly, there's a frustration there for the whole side, isn't there? They're not quite there yet. And yeah, it's just a player with very high standards, I think. You know, I think we would be discussing, he came off all beaming, think everything's fixed now. It wasn't, and it isn't. So no, I love Mo Salah, and I think, you know, he wants Liverpool to get back to the very top. He knows it's a long old trek they've got to catch up with Arsenal, and yeah, I just think it's that he knows Liverpool are not where they should be or want to be.
So we shouldn't be speculating into his future or anything like that, you don't think?
Yeah, I did write a piece last week, just confirming that his offer from the Saudi Pro League is on the table. It's still there. They're prepared to offer him Cristiano Ronaldo type money, 150 million a year, tourism ambassador, stake in the club, whatever he wants basically. But you know, and he will end up in Saudi. He wants to go there. He wants to be this ambassador for Muslim footballers around the world. And it's really admirable what he wants to do. And he will end up there. But yeah, at the moment, I don't think he's going to end up there. Definitely not in January, Sam. Will he end up there in the summer? I don't think so, but let's see how it plays out. It's a long season ahead yet for Liverpool and Mo Salah.
Well, because also one part of this is not to make this whole thing about Salah, but his responsibility was so important to Liverpool last season and every season really since he's been there. However, it's so clear now that his role has changed and the responsibility is spread. And football players, as we know, especially the elite ones, tend to have enormous egos. Wildly similar to podcast hosts.
Yeah, he is that. Not to bring the tone down a little bit, but I do know Mo Salah was massively impacted by the loss of Diogo Jota. He was very close to him. And I do think it's interesting, I'm guilty of this as well, that we don't realise what Liverpool as a squad went through when they lost Jota in the summer. And again, on top of that, Harvey Elliott, another player who Salah's very close to, he moved to Villa. So Mo Salah's had to go through a lot of things off field as well. I would like to put that out there. And to come back to the level he is at now, he's an absolute superstar. And I must admit, I don't think as a Premier League as a whole, we really push Mo Salah enough. I don't think he's ever been, you know, pushed to that place of being the best footballer in the world. And at times last year, he was.
I think you couldn't argue with that, could you? He was absolutely phenomenal. But I suppose for him, he lost out in those key moments like the Champions League where people then used that to fuel those debates. Kieran, if we're talking about Mo Salah, let's talk about his contract, which we're led to believe is heavily performance mandated. I don't know if that's the correct legal terminology. For Liverpool, if he's not performing, how big of a problem is it financially? Or for his camp?
He will still be on a significant base salary. But I've been fortunate enough to have been given a few contracts of elite footballers in the recent months, and the degree of depth to which they go into is very much on an incentivization basis. That's effectively the club saying that we want you to share in our success and vice versa. As far as Mo Salah is concerned, provided Liverpool finish in top 4, top 5 and qualify for the Champions League next season, then the vast majority of the things will crystallise. What we don't see as often these days are contracts where players are being given additional rewards for scoring goals or assists, because there is a feeling, especially sort of in modern football, where it is so linked up, that we want the players to focus on team success rather than individual success. By all means, if they qualify or they're mandated or nominated for the Golden Boot or FIFA Player of the Year, then there could be additional payments if they achieve things with their country in terms of a certain number of caps. Again, they might have some form of reward there, but it's mainly to do with getting into Europe. And I think, sort of going back to what Graeme was saying in terms of where will he be next year, if Liverpool are in the Champions League, I suspect Mo Salah will want to be there. If Liverpool are not in the Champions League, and he's signed a 2-year deal, is my understanding, what's the benefit of him staying at Anfield for a year in which he's only playing Premier League football, and probably one of the what players consider to be, and certainly the financiers consider to be, one of the minor competitions.
I like that came from very much a Brighton perspective. Kieran, I want to pick you up on something you just said there, which is that you've been looking at some players' contracts. So this is a slight tangent, but you're one person who will know this and better tell us. If we talk in the media about a player earning £100,000 a week or £200,000 a week, broadly, is that accurate, or are these contracts much, much, much more complicated than that?
I always take with a large dose of salt the figures which are discussed in the public domain. Sometimes a £200,000 a week contract could be, if all of the boxes are ticked, in terms of you will get a base salary, plus you will get an additional amount of money if you start a game. If you start on the bench, you'll get so much money if you are brought on in the first half, so much money if you're brought on in the second half. Then there are rewards which are linked to team performance. So certainly I know at Brighton, their target is to finish in the top 10. And everybody, including, to be fair, the tea lady, gets a bonus if the club finishes in the top 10. Take these things with a degree of healthy skepticism. But the biggest bonuses that I tend to see are Champions League qualification, especially at the elite end, because 6 into 4, 7 into 4, whatever you want to say, doesn't go. So players are very heavily incentivized there. And secondly, image rights. The clubs want the players to be working with the commercial partners, and there are certain clubs with certain players who will be contracted to say, well, you have to, along with every member of the squad, has to do a minimum of 2 appearances with one of our sponsors. If you choose to do more and you're right at the top end, then you will be rewarded for that. And often then the sponsors will give further bonuses should the club achieve success in terms of it's winning trophies, because that's what the sponsors want. They want their product alongside this elite athlete, alongside this big piece of metal.
Metal is nice. Thank you. Right, we better get Mark's view, because there was a lot going on in that one.
The grappling inside, which we've saw many, many times in Premier League matches, in the Liverpool-Aston Villa game with McAllister and Onana. I thought it had stopped a little bit, especially with the VAR threat that players can be punished. And, referees can go in and warn players, which we've seen. People get upset about that, saying it's delaying the game. However, prevention's better than the cure by awarding a penalty kick or a red card. So sometimes referees like to prevent the situation and try and manage them situations. This one is a strange one because it starts off a bit of pushing, and I can deal with that as a referee. I can, if 2 players are pushing each other, you can issue a yellow card, of course. But I think most referees in the Premier League would manage them situations. But what I think Onana does, he goes one step further, and I think he hugely ran the risk, and I wouldn't have been surprised because he put a hand on the throat. If he's pushing in the chest, then we can manage them situation. But when a player puts his hands around another player's throat and towards the neck area or the head area, then he's massively running the risk of turning that situation into something more. And I think Onana is very, very fortunate that this action wasn't dealt with severely by the referee, because I think this type of challenge should have been a red card, because this sets an example across all levels of football that players can put hands around people's throats, and then what could happen is that action can lead to other things, and then other players are sent off or other players are given yellow cards because of that action, because there's a retaliation, because putting your hands around somebody's throat is not acceptable. So and I think the VAR should have recommended a review, because this, for me, is an act of violent conduct. And this is a one that frustrates a lot of people, because you can defend certainly pushing in the penalty area, but you can't defend putting your hands around somebody's throat, because that's an act of violence. So for for me, this should have been certainly a red card, and I would have preferred that the VAR interfered.